Thank you, Laska Hirlock, and thank you, Minister, for being here. I am today raising the UN Convention Against Torture, which is an extraordinarily important international treaty which governs Ireland's obligations to protect its citizens from all forms of torture and ill treatment. Ireland signed OPCAT in 2007, but now, 12 years later, we are yet to ratify it, meaning we are not bound to comply with its requirements. My first question, therefore, Minister, is when is Ireland planning to ratify this instrument? I know in a response to Deputy Daly last week that it is the Department's view that new primary legislation will be required and that you will be circulating a draft scheme to stakeholders before making a formal proposal to Government this year. However, the Government held a similar position on the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with a Disability, that new primary legislation would be required before then deciding to ratify before the required legislative changes were enacted and progressing them after formal ratification. Have you considered whether this would be an option with OPCAT 2? If you are to remain of the review that new primary legislation is required, can you provide more information on where that process is? Do you hope to bring the proposal to Cabinet before summer recess? Will legislation be introduced to the Oireachtas in the autumn? As you will be aware, Minister, the groups working in this area are concerned at the pace at which these proposals are advancing, and as much detail as you can provide would be much appreciated. As you will also be aware, Minister, the key and most crucial part of the Convention is the optional protocol, which requires states to, quote, set up, designate or maintain at the domestic level one or several visiting bodies for the prevention of torture and other cruel, inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment, which are known as national preventative mechanisms. States are then required to allow unfettered access to all places where persons are deprived of their liberty to those national preventative mechanisms. In the light of our history in Ireland of unlawful detention and institutional abuse such as the Magdalen laundries, we need to get this inspection process right. Independent and regular inspections in institutions and care settings shine a light on otherwise hidden or closed spaces, often the common thread of abuse. We also need to broaden our understanding of the deprivation of liberty outside of traditional detention sentence, PRISM, and consider health and social care settings, including immigration detention centres, direct provision centres, psychiatric hospitals and nursing homes. My point in saying this, Minister, is that the current system is in need of reform, and it is through ratifying OPCAT that we can introduce new inspection regimes, but also improve, reform and consolidate the existing regimes. It is my understanding that you are currently considering appointing a single body to conduct inspections in all deprivation of liberty settings, potentially the prison inspector. I'd really ask you to consider alternatives to this option. What we need is a sector-by-sector mechanisms with experience and expertise doing the inspections within their own sectors. HICWA have expertise with health and social settings, the Children's Ombudsman with children-related settings and so on. We need the experts overseeing their own sectors for real and effective oversight. These individual sectoral mechanisms could then be coordinated by a single body, with the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission being an obvious choice to coordinate these efforts. I'd be happy to work with you on any of these proposals. They are all doable and practical and will see OPCAT implemented here in Ireland to the highest possible standards. I look forward to your response. Thank you.
Senator Minister.
Thanks very much, Hirlock, and on behalf of Minister Flanagan, who sends his regrets, I would like to thank Senator Ruane for raising this very important matter in the House. And on my own behalf and on the Minister's behalf as well, I want to acknowledge Senator Ruane's dedicated interest in this area and in the area of penal reform generally and detention. It is a very important issue, and thank you for raising it and keep raising it. Ireland, as the Senator has said, has signed the optional protocol to the UN Convention Against Torture in 2007, but is yet to ratify this instrument. The protocol is in addition to the UN Convention Against Torture, which Ireland signed and ratified a number of years ago. This government is fully committed to this convention and have fully participated in all that its ratification entails. This additional protocol is preventative in nature and provides for the establishment of a national preventative mechanism or mechanisms which would inspect facilities where a person is held involuntarily. Though the Department of Justice and Equality has been tasked with progressing legislation so far, this protocol can be ratified. This instrument impacts on a number of sectors, including health, defence, children and youth affairs, as the Senator has indicated. The Department has therefore consulted a number of key stakeholders during 2018. These stakeholders comprise those organisations with policy or operational responsibility in respect of inspection arrangements across the ambit of the National Preventative Mechanism regime provided for in OPCAT, which, as I have already stated, goes beyond the justice sector. Additionally, stakeholders included advisory and advocacy organisations with expertise in this area have also been consulted. In doing so, the Department has sought the views of these stakeholders on the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission's research in 2017 into the implementation of OPCAT in Ireland. This research was very much welcomed and comprised a comprehensive report on what should be the primary considerations for the State in making progress towards ratification and implementing of OPCAT. The last of these submissions was received in April 2018. Since then, officials have met a number of stakeholders, including the Inspector of Prisons, who was appointed last year. It is intended that the Inspector and her office would have increased resources to carry out OPCAT-type inspections in the justice sector. Late last year, the Irish Penal Reform Trust, in conjunction with the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, held a round-table discussion in relation to the implementation of OPCAT. Given the feedback at this discussion, it was decided that further consideration would be given to what organisations should carry out a coordinating role for the PMs, including the option that the Human Rights and Equality Commission would carry out its role, as the Senator suggested. The Department are now in the process of finalising the relevant draft scheme of the Inspection of Places of Detention Bill. This will be the vehicle to put in place legislative provisions necessary to enable the ratification of OPCAT. It is intended that it will provide for a network of NPMs in relevant sectors. It will also provide for a coordinating mechanism to assist these and liaise with relevant stakeholders in implementing OPCAT. In finalising the draft scheme, every consideration will be given to the proposals which were conveyed during the consultation process, including which organisation should coordinate the NPMs. I know the Minister Flanagan intends to circulate this scheme to stakeholders for their comments as soon as possible. In doing so, the Department of Justice and Equality will look to for other relevant government departments to consult with all relevant stakeholders in their sector. Similarly, in due course, it will be a matter for each Minister of those sectors to appoint one or more sectoral national preventative mechanisms, as again the Senator has suggested. Following these further consultations, it is intended to finalise this scheme for submission to Government for approval and transmission to the Office of the Parliamentary Council for formal drafting this year. Thank you.
Mr. Supplementary Centre.
Yeah, just that all sounds very positive and obviously is in line completely. It's in line with completely what we would be suggesting in relation to what the department seems to be planning to do. So obviously I've been working with other bodies on this as well, and I'm happy to support and work towards the goals that you've set out in terms of legislative provisions and draft schemes in any way that I can throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator.